Cliff attended Indiana State University in Terre Haute, Indiana, and earned a BFA in sculpture and woodworking. He received his MFA in sculpture from the University of Mississippi in Oxford, Mississippi. He has his work in numerous public collections, including a sculpture and a painting in the Masur Museum's collection, which we are very proud of. The sculpture is on the front lawn. I think we got that around 2007. It's been there for a while. And the painting is a newer acquisition, and it's in this gallery here at the Lower South Gallery. He has taught at ULM since 1997, where he is currently professor of art. And he's a good friend of the museum, and we're very happy to have him here. I would love it if y'all could join me and give him a round of applause and welcome him.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I got some little notes here I'm going to try to read from and stay on track. The first thing I have is thanks. So I want to thank everybody, of course, for coming. Thanks for the staff, because there's a lot of work here, and it took a lot to install it. I see you, Cassie. And you know, it just took a lot of patience for us to get it all, and the placement is great, and I love everything about even the videotape that's going on and this funny microphone I have to wear. But I also want to thank the community, all of you. I mean, I've been here for a very long time, 28 years at ULM, starting this year, and so being in a place where I thought I was going to be here 2 years and leave is interesting. And then seeing everybody who came out that I've met over the years is very nice, and I appreciate your support. And I want to thank ULM, because without my job in education, then I wouldn't have learned so much about how to make things and paint and continue doing the things I love. So they're very supportive of me. And then the students and my little fan club over here with the wonderful t-shirts, it just gives me every time. And then, of course, all the friends that I've got over the years, and I appreciate that. So now, you know, talking about the work is not just really something that I think any artist, well, there are some artists that can talk really well about their work, but I'm pretty much an object maker, and I like being in the studio, and I don't usually dress like this. I have a hat on most of the time, and I'm very comfortable in that position. I actually thought about wearing my studio clothes to the opening here, but then I thought maybe some people would take that as disrespectful, so I got out my suit jacket and my 25-year watch, and here I am. So there's Teresa. Good to see you. She likes to be pointed out when she comes in. I got off track. Hold on. I got to look at my notes. Stay on track. I'm not near as nervous as I used to be speaking in front of people. But I am very much an object maker. I like making objects. And when I switched into painting, which I've really always done, I had to learn how to sort of take that idea of object in 3 dimensions and flatten it out and think of it in different ways. And so I began a long process of that journey. And through that, I learned a lot about painting, and I also started teaching painting. So teaching students, as you know, if you're an educator for sure, is the best way to learn. Anytime you teach something, you learn an awful lot. And so through that process over the years, I think I've been in painting now for about 10, maybe 15 years, almost as long as I taught sculpture here. And so I've learned a great deal, and I think that the work that I've done, the most recent work, which is mostly in that gallery, the larger paintings, kind of shows where I am, and I'm pretty comfortable with how it depicts space and how it moves space and the push and pull of things that are going on. And then my love of color really gets to come out, and along with that, how I think about all artwork, which is really the foundation, which is drawing. And so I've included this little drawing here, which was a lot of, you'll see some of those objects in there actually made, and then I don't think I have any paintings of them, but I have painted a lot of those objects before in the past. And so it's just how I understand the world as a maker. It's sort of how I move through the world, and it's kind of given me a place to be in community, which is important. And so the process of, you know, it's a great deal of patience. When you're making things, you have to have a lot of patience. So when I learned that I had a lot of patience, I didn't really know that I had a lot of patience, but dealing with students, you have to have a lot of patience. And the materials require a lot of patience too. And I think before, in my earlier work, I was pretty much beaten over the head the materials or the work that I was trying to make. I was trying to conform it into what I thought I wanted it to be. And I wasn't giving it space to evolve and speak back to me. So there wasn't a dialogue that developed. And now I think there is a dialogue with the work. I sure start a lot of it. I hardly finish much of it, but I do finish a lot of it. And then the other part that you don't get to see really is the art that I keep sacred for myself. It's in the studio space. And unless you come to the studio, you don't get to see it. So a lot of the work that I make and I really like, I keep in my studio because I don't want anybody to buy it. And then I won't have it anymore. But ever since I discovered this 3D printing, I'm able to let loose of a lot of things because I can scan objects and then remake it in a different material. Some of the work that's cast bronze up in this gallery came from that process where I started with a 3D print and then I cast it in metal and some of it transforms into ceramics. And so there's a lot about process that is very important to how I work and how I construct things. For me, it's not really about the meaning of the work. I don't work and say, okay, this means something to somebody. I think we all come to the work with an idea, and I don't want to squelch that. So I want everybody to look at the work and have sort of a freedom. But I have noticed that if you read the title and you look at the work, I'm getting a little better at fitting those two together. So from that, the meanings that you might arrive at, it's been my experience from talking with the public, is that it comes really close to those things that were going through my mind at the time I made them. And there's a lot of things going on in my head. That's why the work doesn't really have a meaning. It has a lot of different meanings on many different levels. And then every day I'm a different person and I approach the work in a different way. And, that's just kind of the process. But if you have something after the talk that you want to ask me about particularly, I'd be happy to talk about that. I did forget to talk about my background a little bit. So I'm going to back up a little bit. I was a troubled youth and I got in a lot of trouble. I was a troublemaker. And I would get kicked out of class because I couldn't, focus and I couldn't do things that they wanted me to do in class. And I think that had to do with learning and what they think learning is or what they thought learning was then. And so when I found art, that's when I really found the thing that could keep me occupied and keep my, anxieties in check. I was able to focus a lot better if I was making something or if I was drawing or doodling. And so when I found art, which actually was when I went to college, I took an art class. I'd always been one to draw. And I said, wow, this is really challenging. I have to think. And it just occupied that space that I used to get in a lot of trouble trying to occupy. So that's what sort of led me on that journey to make art. I didn't intend to go to college. I thought I'd be working in a factory or maybe on a farm. And the best class I ever took in high school was typing. Because if I hadn't learned to type, then I would not have made it through college. Because in the 80s, when I started going to college, the computer was there, and typing, of course, was some of the things you had to do. Thank goodness they didn't change up the keyboard, because I would be screwed. So I didn't intend to go to college, but I went after getting in, trying a lot of different things. And when I went to college, I found sort of like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm not really an academic person, although I do teach at a college level. I'm just really pretty much a blue-collar person. I like to work. I think work is important. I believe in the work ethic, and I sort of carries through with a lot of my work that you see. I wouldn't say that I'm smart, but I'm not very cerebral. I don't have the language. I don't have the language skills to kind of be eloquent when you're talking. And sometimes I mispronounce words, as a student pointed out to me yesterday. Just a final bit about the way that I approach life is I approach the world and life by saying things out loud, and then I hear it come back in through my ears, and I say, oh, that was stupid. Or maybe I shouldn't say that in that context. And so artwork is a lot like that. I make a lot of stuff, and then I examine it and look at it and see how it might fit with something else and try it somewhere else and see how it all fits. And so basically I put it out there by making, and then I sort of see if it's right or not, see if it fits somewhere. The good thing about that is I can do it in my studio. Usually when I'm talking out loud in the committee or something. They don't understand how I process information, which is hearing how stupid it might sound coming back into my ears. And there are many times when I say, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Or I say things that I don't quite believe just because, I don't really know if I believe it until I say it, I guess. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. All right, so that's pretty much all I have to say. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any. So the question was about the painting in their fortress, and there's a lot to unpack with that painting. I do. Let me pick and choose what I want to say. It is about, I do create walls. I'm not a very enthusiastic person. I think you might have gathered that if you know me. But I am very excited on the inside. I just learned to keep it way low, way down. Don't let that stuff out. And so I realized that I build a lot of walls, and that painting has this sort of way to guard us against that. So it's like a diamond and a wall and a tower. And in a way, it reminds me of Peter Griffith, if you watch that sitcom. And so it is a lot about keeping people out, but somehow letting them in. Because while I am very, I have this kind of wall, if you give me enough time to talk, I'll tell you everything about me. Some things you probably don't want to hear. So it's this wonderful dichotomy that we all have, I'm sure, this nature that we have of who we think we are and who we present ourselves to be, and then who we really are, and how some people allow us to be just who we are, just as people, which is mostly what I find in students. With students, they really kind of let me be the person I am, the teacher that I am. They don't really ask me to be somebody I'm not, which is really good, because I can't be that person. So does that help sort of explain? Plus, I like the colors. And I think that was done during the time of Game of Thrones, when all that all started. So Fortress and all of that stuff is wrapped up in there. There's probably some words in there, too, that I don't know what they say anymore. But a lot of things. I listen to a lot of podcasts and talk radio as I work. And so a lot of that just comes in and goes out. Yeah.
You mentioned the 3D printing being an important part of the new process or process that you came to. Can you talk a little bit more about your connection to technology and how you see it emerging as a instructor?
Yeah, I can. So early on in the 80s, they came out with that little Macintosh computer, and you could get MacDraw and MacPaint, and you could draw circles and squares, and it was fabulous. And you had this little drive thing, I think it was like 56 gigabyte or something, some low number. So then that's been my experience, and I just hit right on the right time, and I got to set up some computer labs, and then I was like, wow, this is wonderful. I should know this stuff because it's the future. And so I learned a little bit when I first came here around 2000. I learned a little bit about 3D modeling, and at that time you couldn't print anything out, at least not, I'm sure they had 3D printers, but they were just high dollar. And so it was about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the printer cost started to come down, and I had this knowledge, so I started again with the university. I got to teach a class of computer modeling, and then we could print out the result. And by that time, I'd still been doing a lot of modeling on the computer, but I just knew so much about it that I was able to teach a class. Then we could print out the end result. And then they had this wonderful thing you can get on your phone to scan objects, 3D objects. You just walk around, take pictures. It's just wonderful. And then that becomes digital. And then you take it in the computer and you can manipulate it a little bit through the modeling applications. And so that's sort of what led me to that process. And then I found these little objects that I've been making that I do hold precious. I could scan them and then reproduce them. That gave me then the ability to remake them larger. You can print any size. So that really opened a lot of things, a lot of avenues for me. And it's just where I am right now. And then I found out this summer, I could take some of those 3D, it's called polyacrylic acid is the type of print that I use. There are many different kinds of things, but I just have stuck with that one because it has a low melting point. So you can invest that by meaning you can make a mold and then melt that material away, and then you can pour molten metal into that cavity. So the pieces in this gallery that are on the table, the cast bronze pieces, are what I got to do this summer. And they all came from this virtual realm. It was made on the computer. That's all the things that I printed out. So it comes from this sort of weirdly, I don't even know how to talk about it, the virtual world, and I get to make it a reality. And that's it's really nice. And cast bronze is my specialty. So in undergraduate school and graduate school, the cast bronze is what I did. This is what I learned. This is all my training. And so it was kind of a nice way to come back to my roots, to cast metal again this summer. I did that up in Little Rock. Yes?
There's a painting upstairs called Balzac. I don't know how to pronounce it, but the word
Balzac. Yeah.
the word
I don't know how to pronounce it either, but that's how I pronounce it if I'm going to.
the word fortress is painted into the image. Is it related to the fortress painting?
Actually, they were done at the same time, right? Yes, they were. And they have a lot of the similar kind of, I'm going to call it Peter Griffith figure, this sort of chunky, belly sort of thing, which is all a reflection on me as I sort of, go through this life and gain a few pounds here and there. And so, and that's one of my favorite TV shows. So it has this sort of massiveness. And Balzac was a sculpture done by Rodin. So Balzac was actually a writer. And then Rodin did a sculpture of him. And he was in a cloak and he had this just presence. And his foot was hanging off of the pedestal. And I remember when I was taught this in undergraduate school, that was the important thing of sculpture. And it was a breakthrough because the figure, the monument, the statue, started to come off of the pedestal and into our space. And so I see both of those canvases as not being this flat thing on a wall, but as that you can enter, that you get to go into the painting. The title of the show? Oh, that's a good question. So when I was young, and I was going to cover that, thank you very much for asking. It was in my background part I was going to do on the notes, but when I was young, I was the first one to graduate high school from my family, and I was the first one to go to college. So my mom and dad married early, 16, 17 years old, and then he went off to the Army. So we just didn't have a lot of things to play with. We didn't have a lot of toys and that kind of thing. We get sent outside, as happened with my generation, to, go do things, get outside, get away from here, get out of my hair, basically. And so I did a lot of building. I built a lot of forts and just places, little nooks and places to be. And then I also would lay on my back and sort of pretend like I was swimming by propelling myself with my feet. And look up at the sky, and all the jets and birds and things are flying by. And I'd just make up this world that I like to read a lot, and I still do. So I just make up this kind of narrative about things, and I don't even remember. But that's where the idea really is that art is much like play. You have to play in order to be a good artist. You have to fail. So again, you have to have this rather safe space to explore and create and fail, and then pick yourself up and have the confidence to go on. And that's really what I try to convey to students. It's sometimes a hard thing to students to understand because they want to make the best work all the time. And I do too. But if you don't give people that space to sort of flounder and fail and look for whatever the truth might be, then, it's hard to find it. It'll take a little bit longer. Thank you very much for asking. Okay. Any other final questions?
More questions for that? All right, thank you, Cliff. Great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.